Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at some things you can do to your script in Word before you import to make that importing process as simple and painless as possible. You may not run across all of the issues that we're going to talk about today, but if you run across one or two of them, then you'll know how to fix them. I encourage you to make this video full screen so you can see what I'm doing with my cursor, where I'm clicking, what it looks like. And if you need to pause me so you can go and try it yourself and then come back and watch it again, whatever you need to do, that's absolutely fine. So I've got a script here and I will provide it to the subscribers as well so you can practice on something that is not your baby, so you will not damage anything. It's a Shakespeare downloaded from Project Gutenberg, and the great thing about Project Gutenberg is sometimes its formatting can be a little funky, so it gives us a great example of things that could potentially be weird about a script that you're trying to import. The first thing we always want to do is to save whatever document as an RTF, which is the rich text format. And also that means that your original script is safe and sacrosanct and will not be affected by all of the various things we're going to do to this. So make sure you have a copy of your script that is untouched, and then we're going to save as RTF and we can do whatever we want to that one. So I'm sure all of you know how to do this, but just in case you don't, you go to File, Save As. And then here in the file format, you can choose from a drop-down menu. So we're going to select rich text format. I'm going to call it Titus Andronicus and example1.rtf. You can call it whatever you want, save it wherever you like, and then you just click save. So now you can see up here the title of the document that we're working with has changed so that we know we're working with the new one and not the old one. Again, most of you, I'm sure, already know that. So one of the things I want to show you is what could happen if we just try and import this directly without doing anything to it first. So we're going to go and do our handy, click over to Fade In. We're going to do File, Import, and Rich Text Format, and then we're going to select, I hit it here somewhere, Titus example1.rtf. So we've just imported it directly. We haven't made any changes, and you can see we've got some problems. The dramatis personae has sort of run into itself. Here's one name, here's the next. In the original document, you can see they were stacked nicely beneath each other, so there's been something in the hard return at the end of the line that has not imported correctly, and I will show you what to do if that happens. We also have 6/13/20, which is a date that is not on this page anywhere. So what has happened is it has grabbed the footer. So one of the things we want to do is to remove any headers or footers, and I will show you how to do that just in case you're not familiar. And then that was just the dramatis personae, and you can see when you get down to the text, it does not look any better. We've got these weird symbols in the middle of it. It's running one person's dialogue into the next. So these are some of the problems you may encounter when you try to import. Clearly there's so much work, we can't work with something like this. So this is not an ideal situation. And I will show you, I do not want to save that, show you what we can do about that. So one of the first things we want to do is to get rid of the title page and character list, or here we call it a dramatis personae, because in Fade In, it's actually considered a separate document within the same file. So if you want to put a title page that Fade In will recognize as a title page, you can go to Document Title Page and show the title page. And here it's got this separate document that is contained within your script file. And this is set up for correct formatting for screenplay, so it's anchored, but you can delete these and put whatever you would like on this title page. And it's one page right now. You can keep typing. If I hit enter a few times, it will give you a second page. You can put page breaks in there, and then this can be your character list. So this is a great way to make sure that when you start numbering your pages, they don't count the title page or the character list or any of these front matter items on your page count, which is also the standard way of doing things. And then when you're done editing the title page in here, you can close it. And this is back to the document that would have your script in it. So we don't want this information all bunged up at the top of the actual text of the script. So this is why I told you to save an original copy. We're going to just highlight all of this and get rid of it. And we can add that back in to the title page when we're done importing. So now we have the script. And we said we wanted to get rid of the headers and footers. The date, yeah, so we have the date here that we don't want. Just double click in the footer area and you can delete it. So if you have your script title or your name, any of this information, act number, scene number, you want to get rid of all of that and just have blank headers and footers. The page numbers it does know what to do with, so those aren't going to accidentally get inserted as numbers randomly throughout the text. You can leave those as they are, or you can delete it also. Oh, never mind. Okay, we'll just leave them where they are. You can delete them if that makes you happier. The other thing we want to do to see all of the following issues that we want to deal with is to show the formatting, all of the characters that you don't normally see. Hopefully you guys are familiar with this button. If you're not, it's a super handy tool. So at the end of each line, we have two different markers. We have the backwards P and we have this arrow that looks like an enter key. Fade in does not recognize the arrows as a line break. They're technically called line breaks, but it will only recognize these paragraph marks as an actual end of the line. So that's what happened when we had all of the text and all of the dialogue bundled into one big paragraph. It wasn't reading these as line breaks. And the way that fade in identifies an element, because each line has its own element, the way it defines that line is a thing that exists between two paragraph marks. So if it doesn't see those, then it just thinks it's all one big element and we'll bunch it all into a paragraph. So we want to get rid of these little arrows, the line breaks, and replace them with paragraph marks. And before you start getting too terrified that I'm going to make you do this line by line, there's a super quick way to do this. Oh, I'm sorry, I am new to a Mac. I need to figure out where they have hidden. Edit, find, and we want the replace function. So this is how it looks on a Mac. On a PC, it looks quite different. I've used a PC for 30 years and only switched to a Mac like 3 weeks ago, so forgive me. On a PC, it will look something like this. You hit, in your home menu here, go to the end and click replace, and you'll get a little dialog box that is about this big, so it cuts off below these buttons here. And this button will say more. If you click on that, you get the big dialog box that we're looking at. So this is what you want it to find. This is what you want it to replace. And then down here is where you find the special characters, which is great. This is something new I learned over the summer, that you can actually search for special characters and replace them with other special characters. So now you know where to find this on your PC. I'm going to switch back over to my version. Do I remember how to do this? So on the PC version, when you select line break, it'll pop something in here, which is little hat and then an L, and that will find all of these enters. And you want to replace it with the little hat and then a P, which is the symbol for these paragraph marks. I know I found where to find advanced find and replace. There it is. Sorry, guys. So in the replace, you can make your window bigger on a Mac as well. And then the special characters are down here. So the paragraph mark is what we want it to replace it with. So, or hang on, let me go back up here and do it from the very beginning. All right, so what do we want to find? Special characters. It's called manual line break. That's what you want to look for. And you see it pop that little hat L up in the find. So it's going to find the manual line break, which are all represented by those little arrows on your page. We want to replace it with special character. This is a paragraph mark, and it will put in a little hat and then a P. That is the code for those backward Ps that we looked like. So find next, I always like to do 1 to make sure it's doing what I want it to. And you can see here it has highlighted the little backwards arrow. And we replace it. And look, now it's got a little backwards P, which is great. So now we can do replace all, and it has made 2,590 replacements that you did not have to do by hand. And now when we import into fade in, it will recognize that each individual line separated or between two paragraph marks is its own element, and it won't bunch things together in funny giant blocks. So that is a super quick way to do that. And on the checklist that I have made for you, it will have these codes, the hat L and the hat P, to remind you so you don't need to keep referring back to this video. So the other thing we want to do is get rid of these little circles here. These, I'm not entirely sure what these are. They're functioning as spaces, but they're the things that when we imported became those weird tildes, those little squiggles. So clearly those are not importing properly. Also, even if they were plain spaces and they were importing as plain spaces, that's not something that we want. We want all of the formatting to be defined by the programming in Fade-In. And if we're adding spaces to make things shift, then that's going to create problems later on. And you're going to have to remove them one by one. But there is also, so anyway, I'm not going to make you go through and delete all of these one by one. You can actually cut and paste them. Because I don't know what they are, I can't find the code for them. But if you cut and paste, so I'll do it so you can see what I'm doing. So we copy, and we paste it into the find. And you'll see the cursor shifted over. We can't see those bubbles, but it has shifted over, and look, it has found all of those things. And what do we want to replace it with? Absolutely nothing. And you can do that. So here we've got clearly something, and we want to replace it with nothing, so you just don't replace it. Don't put anything in the replace function. So it has found all of these because it's four little bubbles all together, and I want to do a replace. And look, the ones that were here have disappeared. So it has found the right thing and it replaced it with the right thing. So now I can do a replace all. And it has made 2,520 replacements. So it took out those four space markers and has replaced them with nothing. So we can see everything is nicely lined up, except we still have some issues here around the character names. And that's got two of these. So what we're going to do is the same thing. Select them. We're going to copy and make sure we get rid of what was in there to begin with, and paste. And now look, you can see the cursor moved over, so it recognizes there's something in there, and we still have nothing in the replace field because we want it to replace it with absolutely nothing. So I'll do one to check. And yep, the two before Basanius are gone, so it's doing what we want it to, and now I can click replace all. It made 606 replacements. Did it get that first one up here? Yes, it did. Wonderful. So now we have everything justified on one side. It's all got paragraph markers. Here's the one before this line, and here's the one at the end of that line. So because this Shakespeare is in verse, each individual line is its own element, which makes it a little more tedious to import. If you're just writing where it'll run to the end of the page and then justify itself, and you only have it, the paragraph marks the beginning of the paragraph and the end of the paragraph, that's fine too, but we now made sure that they're all actually paragraph marks and not manual line breaks. So the last thing we want to do is to get rid of any empty spaces. Here we can see that every line is pretty much full. But if there are blank spaces between your lines, like if you have created the spacing on your page by actually having a hard return with nothing on this line, and again like this, that's going to cause you problems when you import it into Fade-In. Not technically, it will all look fine, but you will have these blank lines floating around, which when you try to print, it might try and tell you that those are errors because there should never be lines with nothing on them in Fade-In. Also, again, we want the formatting to be defined by the program. So you can control how much space is between various lines by using the element styles as we looked at. So we don't want these blank lines doing any of that work for us. We want it to all be controlled by the programming. So again, we want to get rid of these, any blank lines that happen to be there. They're often around scene ends and scene beginnings to differentiate them. So if you have any of those, again, we can do a quick find and replace. You don't need to go through and hunt them by hand. So we are going to do an advanced find and replace. And again, once you've learned the codes, you can just type them in. What do we want it to find? Let's get rid of those two bubbles. And we go back to our special. We want it to find paragraph mark. But when you get a blank line, it's a paragraph mark followed by a paragraph mark. So we want two of those. Oops, I'm in the wrong place. And we want to replace it with just one. I'm not sure if this will make sense. So if you hit enter, enter, then you get that blank line between the two items. If you just hit enter once, then whatever the next thing is will appear on the line immediately below it. So we're getting rid of any enter enters and just replacing it with one enter, which will bring everything so that there's no blank lines between anything. So find next, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. See here, we have an enter enter. So it has found there's two of those in a row, and we want to replace it with just one. Oh, and it jumps straight to the next one. But so here we have an enter, enter, and we want to replace it with just one, which will get rid of the second one, won't it? So replace. You see it now closed up because now there's just one enter at the end of the line. We want to do it, we can do it again, replace, and we can just do a replace all. And it made one more replacement. So there weren't very many of them in this script, but that's something that's good to do for any script that you import, is to get rid of those blank lines in between. So that's it. And now we want to, actually, one more thing. You can see this is offset from the left margin. That's okay because it's not being done artificially. It's not being done with space bars or tabs. You can see there's nothing here. It's just a margin thing. So that will be fine when it imports. You don't need to worry about anything that is done by margins. And you don't need to worry about anything that is done. So one way that we might have a bunch of space in between the lines is if you go to Format, Paragraph, is if there's spacing before or after. And this is a formatting option that you have in Word. So sometimes there's a default, let's say there's an 8 point and your spacing has been created this way. If you do the find and replace for the two enters, it's not going to find them because there's only the one, and the formatting here is being defined by something else. You don't need to worry about these blank lines if you see this as a blank line in between, because it's not being defined by a character. This space is not being defined by a character that these characters could possibly be imported into Fade-In. It's just by the formatting that is imposed by your settings in Word. So those we don't need to worry about. Those we can leave as they are. It's not about how it looks on the page. It's about what characters are in the document that will be imported and then start creating their own functions in Fade-In. So this is a way that we make sure that Fade-In controls all of the formatting. So any Word formatting we don't need to worry about. So now we want to make sure to save the document. So File, Save, with all the changes that we've made to it. And now we're going to try importing this one into Fade-In. Nope, I don't want to save the document. So now that we've made those changes, we're going to import the document again, rich text format, and find it on the page. And you remember what it looked like the last time we did it. And now it looks much better. So it's got a couple of blank lines up here. That's fine. We can get rid of those. Maybe. Anyway. And so now each line is its own thing. Now it still thinks all of these are actions, so we're going to have to go through and do our fun little reformatting. But at least now we don't have the squiggles. It's not bunching everything into big paragraphs, so that's a way that we have avoided having to deal with these issues once they're in Fade-In. Once they're in Fade-In, I suppose you could still do the find and replace, but I feel like it's less work if you do it before you import. So those are the things I wanted to hit up for today. If you have encountered any other difficulties when you've been trying to import something into Fade-In, please let me know. One of the other issues that I encountered was a title that had been put into the document as an image. If there are any image files in your Word document, Fade-In doesn't know what to do with them. You'll try to import it and the little wheel of death will just spin and spin and spin. And it will never actually figure it out. So if you have any images in your text, this may be unlikely, but in case you do, remove those before you try and import. And that will fix that problem. So if you have any other questions, if there's anything you would like to ask me, some questions I haven't covered, please absolutely leave me a comment over on the website and I will answer those for you, because I'm sure if you have that question, a bunch of other people do as well. And otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you again soon.